The sea stretched wide and restless, its waves breaking against the rugged cliffs of England's southern coast. It was the year 1588, a time when Europe was embroiled in religious and political conflicts that reshaped kingdoms and empires. England, a small but fiercely independent nation under Queen Elizabeth I, stood against the might of the Spanish Empire, the most powerful force in the world. The Spanish Armada, a fleet of 130 ships carrying thousands of soldiers and sailors, loomed as a dire threat, its mission to invade and subjugate England. The Spanish king, Philip II, saw himself as the defender of Catholicism in an age of Protestant reform. For years, England's Protestant faith and support for rebellious Dutch provinces had provoked him. The execution of Mary, Queen of Scots, a Catholic figurehead, was the final affront. Philip prepared his armada to dethrone Elizabeth and bring England back into the Catholic fold. But the English, led by cunning naval commanders and the unyielding spirit of their people, would not go quietly into subjugation. England's navy, though smaller and less equipped, had been preparing for months. Under the leadership of Lord Charles Howard of Effingham and the legendary Sir Francis Drake, the English fleet adopted strategies to counter the massive Spanish formation. The English ships, smaller and more maneuverable, relied on speed and precision. They would not face the Armada head-on, but harass and outmaneuver it, exploiting their superior seamanship and knowledge of the turbulent English Channel. The Armada sailed from Spain in May 1588, its towering galleons forming an impressive crescent formation designed to protect the fleet's vulnerable transports and supplies. As it approached the English coast, the sight of the Armada struck fear into the hearts of those who saw it, a vast and seemingly invincible force. Beacon fires were lit along the coast, signaling the arrival of the enemy, and the English fleet prepared to intercept. The first skirmishes occurred off Plymouth, where Drake and his fleet harried the Armada's rear. The English ships darted in and out of range, firing broadsides before retreating into the safety of open water. The Spanish galleons, built for close-range combat, struggled to respond. While the damage inflicted by the English was minimal, the psychological effect was profound. The Spanish commanders, including the cautious Duke of Medina Sidonia, were unprepared for such aggressive tactics. As the Armada continued its northward journey, it anchored off Calais to regroup and await reinforcements from the Spanish Netherlands. This pause was critical, giving the English time to prepare their most daring assault. In the dead of night, they launched fire ships, vessels packed with explosives and set ablaze, toward the anchored Spanish fleet. The fires illuminated the dark sky, casting eerie shadows over the sea as panic spread among the Spaniards. Desperate to avoid destruction, the Armada scattered, breaking its crescent formation and losing its cohesion. The English seized the opportunity, attacking the disorganized Armada in a fierce battle off Gravelines. The English gunners, trained for precision, inflicted heavy damage on the Spanish ships, many of which were already low on supplies and ammunition. The once mighty Armada was battered and forced to retreat, its hopes of invasion dashed. But the Armada's ordeal was far from over. The journey back to Spain took the fleet through the treacherous waters of the North Atlantic. Storms battered the already weakened ships, and many were wrecked on the rocky coasts of Scotland and Ireland. Of the 130 ships that set sail, fewer than half returned to Spain. The Great Armada, once seen as an unstoppable force, had been humbled. For England, the defeat of the Spanish Armada was more than a military victory. It was a defining moment in its history. The nation, led by its lion-hearted queen, had stood against the might of a global empire and prevailed. The victory cemented England's status as a rising naval power, laying the foundation for its future dominance of the seas. Queen Elizabeth I, addressing her troops at Tilbury as the threat of invasion loomed, had declared, "I know I have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king, and of a King of England too. Her words captured the spirit of the nation, a determination to resist tyranny and defend its sovereignty at all costs. In the years that followed, the memory of the Armada shaped England's identity. It became a symbol of resilience, ingenuity, and the power of a united people. The sailors and commanders who faced the Armada were celebrated as heroes, their deeds immortalized in song and story. The lion, a symbol of England's strength, had roared against the storm and emerged victorious. The Spanish Armada was not the end of the conflict between England and Spain, but it marked a turning point. The balance of power shifted, and England began its rise as a global maritime power. The battle for the seas was far from over, but in 1588, the Lion had proven that even the greatest of armadas could be defeated by courage, strategy, and an unyielding will to survive. The Spanish Armada's origins lay not only in religious discord but also in personal affronts and political ambitions. For King Philip II of Spain, the marriage proposal he once extended to Queen Elizabeth I, which she rejected, was not merely a matter of personal pride but a significant political rebuff. The Protestant Reformation had splintered Europe, and Elizabeth's England stood as a beacon of Protestant resistance. Philip, a staunch Catholic, viewed her defiance as heresy, a challenge to his divine right, and a threat to the unity of Christendom. Philip's resolve to invade England crystallized after the execution of Mary, Queen of Scots. Mary, a Catholic and Elizabeth's cousin, had been a focal point for Catholic plots to overthrow the English queen. Her death in 1587 eliminated any hope for a Catholic restoration through peaceful means. To Philip, Mary's execution was both an insult and a justification for war. England's persistent support for the Dutch revolt against Spanish rule only heightened the urgency. Preparations for the Armada were immense, a testament to Spain's power and ambition. Dozens of shipyards across the empire worked tirelessly to construct new ships and refit old ones. Cannons were forged, provisions gathered, and thousands of men conscripted into service. The fleet, when assembled, was a marvel of engineering and logistics. Its flagship, the San Martin, symbolized Spain's naval supremacy, a floating fortress armed to the teeth. England, by contrast, was not as wealthy or as militarily dominant as Spain. Its navy was smaller, and its resources were stretched thin. Yet, England had something Spain lacked: innovation and daring commanders. Sir Francis Drake was among the most celebrated of these figures. An experienced sailor and privateer, Drake had spent years harassing Spanish shipping, earning both riches and infamy. His raid on the Spanish port of Cadiz in 1587, dubbed the "singeing of the King of Spain's beard," delayed the Armada's launch and demonstrated England's willingness to strike first. As the Armada set sail in May 1588, the tension in England reached a fever pitch. The sight of the Spanish fleet, stretching for miles across the horizon, was a chilling reminder of the stakes. The English response was swift and decisive. Beacons lit along the coast carried warnings across the kingdom, rallying towns and villages to prepare for invasion. In London, Elizabeth's counselors debated strategy, while in the ports, sailors readied their ships for battle. The English fleet was led by Lord Charles Howard of Effingham, a nobleman with limited naval experience but a keen strategic mind. His second-in-command, Sir Francis Drake, brought the expertise and audacity needed to confront the Spanish juggernaut. The two men, though different in temperament, complemented each other, forming a command that proved crucial to England's survival. The first encounters between the fleets were skirmishes rather than full-scale battles. The English ships, lighter and more maneuverable, harassed the Spanish, probing their defenses and disrupting their formation. The Spanish Armada, designed for direct combat and invasion, struggled to adapt to these hit-and-run tactics. The English long-range cannons, though less powerful than Spain's, were used to devastating effect, forcing the Spanish to expend precious ammunition without inflicting significant damage in return. The night attack at Calais was a masterstroke of English ingenuity. The fire ships, sent drifting into the Spanish anchorage, caused chaos and panic. The Armada, fearing explosive devastation, cut its anchors and scattered into the open sea. The once imposing crescent formation was broken, leaving the fleet vulnerable to English pursuit. The Battle of Gravelines was the climax of the campaign. English gunners, well-trained and disciplined, pummeled the disorganized Spanish ships. The San Martin, though heavily damaged, fought valiantly, a testament to Spanish resilience. But the battle was a rout. The Armada, its supplies dwindling and its morale shattered, had no choice but to retreat. The journey back to Spain was a nightmare. Storms in the North Atlantic battered the fleet, driving ships onto the coasts of Scotland and Ireland. Survivors who reached shore often found themselves at the mercy of local populations hostile to Spain. Of the 30,000 men who set sail with the Armada, fewer than 10,000 returned home. The defeat was a national trauma for Spain, a blow to its prestige and power. For England, the victory was transformative. The defeat of the Armada became a symbol of divine favor, reinforcing the idea that Elizabeth's reign was ordained by God. Her speech at Tilbury, delivered to her troops as the invasion loomed, resonated deeply. "I have always so behaved myself that, under God, I have placed my chiefest strength and safeguard in the loyal hearts and goodwill of my subjects," she declared. Her words, coupled with the victory, solidified her image as a leader who could unite her people in the face of overwhelming odds. The aftermath of the Armada's defeat did not bring an end to hostilities. Spain continued to pose a threat, and England, emboldened by its success, took the fight to its adversary. English privateers, sanctioned by the Crown, raided Spanish shipping and colonies, draining Spain's resources and spreading its forces thin. The war between England and Spain would drag on for another decade, punctuated by battles, sieges, and naval confrontations. The defeat of the Spanish Armada also had broader implications for Europe. It marked the beginning of Spain's gradual decline as a dominant power, and the rise of England as a major player on the world stage. The English Navy, forged in the fires of the Armada campaign, became the cornerstone of a maritime empire that would span the globe. The victory instilled a sense of national pride and identity, laying the cultural foundations for the age of exploration and expansion. But the victory was not without its costs. The war drained England's treasury, and the strain of constant vigilance weighed heavily on the population. The triumph over the Armada did not alleviate the social and economic challenges that persisted at home. Poverty, disease, and inequality remained widespread, even as the nation celebrated its naval heroics. The Spanish Armada's story is one of ambition and hubris, resilience and ingenuity. For King Philip II, it was a gamble that ended in disaster. For Queen Elizabeth I, it was a testament to the power of leadership and the unity of her people. The events of 1588, immortalized in art, literature, and folklore, remain a defining chapter in the history of England and the world. The Lion of England, with its courage and cunning, had faced the mightiest armada ever assembled and emerged victorious. The battle for the seas, though far from over, had shifted in favor of the island nation. It was a moment of triumph that would echo through the centuries, inspiring generations to come.